We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, the podcast where we dive deep into the art of songwriting, chat with some of the most exciting artists in the world, and explore the stories behind their songs. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and thank you for joining us. Our guest today on the podcast is the much-beloved Aussie musician, G-Flip. Drummer, producer, singer, and all-around legend, G-Flip has become one of the country's most adored artists over the past 7 years, known for their infectious blend of pop and indie rock. Alongside their chart-topping records, they've also been recognised as an incredible role model within the queer community, and their music has been acknowledged with awards from the ARIAs, the AIR Awards, MTV Europe Awards, and many, many more. Just last Friday, G-Flip released their highly anticipated third studio record, Dream Ride. It is a beautiful ode to the 80s, packed with neon-coloured hooks, big rock ballads, and the kind of anthemic power pop moments that feel instantly timeless. In today's episode, we're chatting with G-Flip about Dream Ride and why they wanted to make a huge 80s-inspired record. We talk about the persona of Butch Springsteen and the tools they use to immerse themselves in that sonic world, how one of the album's best tracks evolved through multiple iterations before being blown into a full-on 80s power ballad, and what it was like working again with producer Aidan Hogg to cut down over 100 demos into a sharp 10-track album. We also chat about their current world tour and what fans can expect from their live show. Now we want to say a massive thank you to Claire for her help with today's episode and remind everyone that G-Flip's brand new record, Dream Ride, is out right now. You'll find links in the show notes on where you can grab the record, follow them on their socials, and get tickets to their upcoming world tour. While you are in the show notes, please make sure you subscribe to This Song Is Yours and give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok. It really does help us out, and it ensures that you stay up to date with new episodes, guests, and everything else that we've got coming up. Now let's get into it. Here is our conversation with G-Flip. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, G-Flip. G, hello there. How's it going?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today in what I would believe is an incredibly busy and hectic time in your life. We're sitting here a week after Dream Ride, the third record from G-Flip. It's out now for people to enjoy. Firstly, congratulations. How are you feeling with this record being out?
Yeah, it feels great to be out, and I feel like, I played my first show of the Dream Ride tour last night, so, it's straight into it, record out and then straight on tour. So haven't given some of these audiences a lot of time to get familiar with the songs, but the energy last night was amazing, so I feel like we're off to a good start.
That is good to hear. Is there anything that you do usually to acknowledge the release of an album? Is there like a tradition, a ritual, a celebration maybe that is at least, tips the hat to a new record being released?
To be honest, I'm not much of a celebrator. Like, I really hate my birthday. Like, I don't ever want to have a party or anything. I feel like my life is so self-centered around me being a solo artist. Like, everything, interviews, we're just talking about me, like life and traveling. It's always me. So I don't know. I don't like to celebrate too much. I feel like just getting to do this as a job is, always been my dream, and that's enough. And I wake up every day feeling so lucky, and so like I woke up today on the tour bus and I almost cried because I was looking at the desert flying by and I was like, oh my God, I made it, So I'm just stoked to be doing this as a job. So every day is a celebration for me.
I kind of love that. I think that maybe similar to myself and another few people that I know, that is that celebration of maybe the tour is the celebration, being able to be around people that can enjoy and celebrate the music as well. Is that thing of the acknowledgement? Yeah,
the shows are like the best part. So
it is an incredible record. And it's something that I wanted to discuss today in our chat in terms of that it is an addition to a discography of 3 I want to say like modern classics in terms of Australian music, and that's not simply saying that because we're in conversation today and I'm faced with being able to chat to you. I think that throughout the course of the last 5 or 6 years, About Us was a bit of a modern classic when it came out. And then Drummer, when it came out a few years ago, I think even excelled and propelled G-Flip into the stratosphere in terms of your music being known across the world, the accolades and acknowledgement, the ARIA Awards last year. Did any of that play into this new record, into Dream Ride, in terms of what you wanted to achieve and I guess having more eyeballs on the project and more people listening to what you're doing?
Yeah, I kind of just went into my third record. You know, I had a tight turnaround. I wanted to get it done in 3 to 4 months. I feel like the drummer touring, we did a drummer tour continued. I did another round of shows because it went so well. So I only had a short turnaround to put this record together, but I just love making music. It's so fun. I love being in my studio every day, and me and Aiden, who I co-wrote and co-produced all the songs with, we just every day went into my studio and, you know, tried to write 3 or 4 songs a day so that at the end we could pick our favorite pile, and that's what Dream Ride is. And, you know, I like picking songs that I'm going to love to perform live because I'm going to have to do that for the rest of my life, and just songs that I like. And I remember writing so many songs every day. You know, you forget a lot of songs, but if you can still sing that chorus that you wrote 2 weeks ago, then it's probably something you should revisit. So, yeah, I just like releasing and writing music that I personally enjoy, and I just hope others will enjoy it in the process as well.
I did hear that the potential kind of collection of songs for Dream Ride did start at 100 and kind of was whittled down from that number. What exactly was that process like, as you just kind of touched on then? I imagine that there's an element of it has to resonate with you and also have certain trademark, maybe like a catchy chorus or things that you enjoy that keep you coming back to the song. But was there any kind of trick to making that jigsaw work? Because sometimes it is a bit of a fine process of working out what gels together and what is going to work as a cohesive record.
Straight away, we knew the 100 songs, it all had to be in the 80s world. And the 80s has a lot of, you know, variation in what's going on. You know, there's indie rock kind of vibes. There's like 80s ballads. There's like, you know, Devo, like high tempo drumming vibes. There's, you know, key changes and sax solos and Bruce Springsteen. But then there's like Madonna kind of songs. And then there's, you know, like a lot of percussion and the way that they would make like the drums, they'd use the Linn drum came into play. So people were using real drum sounds, but then electronic drum sounds. And it was such a creative era with so much depth. So the 100 songs, we really wanted to cover a lot of that depth. But then in the songwriting process, there's just songs that you write them and you instinctively know, like, that is good and that's going to make it. So there was a lot of those songs that, you know, it's like fishing. It's like catching fish. You're writing so many songs, but then you'll catch a big one every once in a while. And some of those big ones, they went straight on the whiteboard for like, that's going to be on the record. And then there was other songs that were like, oh, the chorus is good, but we haven't nailed the verses. Let's keep workshopping it. So then there was another pile of songs of workshopping. And then some of those songs, we cracked it, and then that made the album. So it was just a fine line of, you know, just a lot of hours and a lot of late nights and early mornings.
Can you talk us through, I know you mentioned Bruce Springsteen as one part of a reference for the 80s. I know that one name that I've been seeing floating around with the record is Butch Springsteen, which I think is a very kind of interesting take on like a way to classify this record. Can you talk to us about where, I guess, that thought process and persona maybe came from in developing these 80s sounds and having it work as a modern day 80s record? Because sometimes as well there are records that use 80s as an influence and can, for better or worse, kind of come across as pastiche or a throwback. And this album doesn't seem to do that. It seems to masterfully kind of utilize those sounds and sonics, but brings it into a very kind of modern template, which I think is part of the power of Dream Ride.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I guess Butch Springsteen, I really, with world building and an album, I really thought, okay, if I was an artist in the 80s, what would I be like? What would I look like? What car would I drive? So I cut my hair and dyed my hair because I was like, yeah, I'd probably have like platinum blonde, like shorter hair. And I'd drive like a hot pink 1970s Barracuda, which is the car that's like on my album cover and is the aesthetic of the album. And then sonically, I was like, I'd be like a Butch Springsteen or like a masculine Madonna. Like those were the terminology. And then that terminology, also then I started using it with the sonics, with the actual music. Like we'd listen to a song and I'd be like, oh, it needs to be more like Butch Springsteen, like a bit more, my vocal tape needs to be a bit more like Bruce, or, I want, the guitars to chunk a little bit more, like we need to toughen it up. Like, so it became part of the language of sonically how I wanted the album to sound. And then when I was explaining to my managers or to the label of what this album is, that was my headline, that's what I would use to get people to understand what I was going for, because I could be like, yeah, I'm just making a 80s record, but I feel like the terminology of Butch Springsteen, like if there was like an 80s queer butch lesbian who was playing drums, playing saxophone, this is the vibe and the character in the world that I'm trying to build. And then that was easier to digest for people that I'm trying to tell what I'm trying to portray in my music. So I just ended up using that word a lot, and especially in the studio as well.
I think that it does help kind of connect a number of worlds together in a very kind of quick fashion. It's almost like an elevator pitch in a way that has worked for this record. It definitely has the sonics of an 80s album and does it extremely well. But as most people would know who are aware of your music and your persona and your artistry, is that you have definitely never shied away from being yourself and being honest and being true to who you are. And I think that it definitely blends a number of beautiful things together. I think that there obviously it was in the 80s a number of very important artists from the queer community who did their art and made their art. But I don't think that there was anything, and I could be very wrong, and please correct me, either yourself or people in the comments, I'm sure, will do so, where it was never addressed, I guess, that queerness directly in the song. It might have been like skirting around it, but I think this record also does a very good job of at least being honest and I guess using those sonic elements that were never maybe used to speak about or address those things as directly as you have on this record, which I think is a really incredible thing for those people in the queer community who maybe still enjoy very much those records and artists of the 80s who maybe didn't talk about it as much.
Yeah, I guess as a queer non-binary person, I always like to, it's my experience, and my music and my songwriting is all about my experience. So I never shy away from, loudly speaking on writing lyrics on my story and what I'm going through and what I've been through and, what's going on in my head and with my gender identity and my sexuality and my partner and my relationship and my wife. So, I only know how to write from, what's going on in my world and what I've experienced or the people close to me have experienced. So, yeah, it's always going to be authentic in that way.
I absolutely love that. I was hoping that we are a songwriting podcast. I'm hoping that I might be able to ask you about one of my favourite tracks on the record.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a beautiful run of 3 songs somewhere in the middle of the record that one deals with, I want to say, Catholic and queer guilt. Another one deals with quite a romantic concept. And then the one sandwiched between is, as we said, you're very direct, you're very honest. This one was not the one I'm asking about, but Cut His Dick Off was extremely direct, extremely to the point, an extremely impressive song. What I'm wanting to ask about was that third one, Baby I'm a Winner, which I think is a beautifully romantic song, and it's just an incredible run of 3 tracks. Can you talk us through Baby I'm a Winner and where that kind of came from?
Yeah, Baby I'm a Winner was actually one of the earliest songs written on the album. An amazing Australian artist named Emma Louise, who just dropped a record with Flume, actually. Emma lives in LA. And throughout this process of me and Aiden writing the record, we'd keep inviting friends over, or our saxophone friend over, or our guitarist mate over, or like just all these random friends that we've, grown up with, or from the music industry, or have their own project. We were writing 3 to 4 songs a day. So we'd be like, me and Aiden write at this first chunk of the day, and let's invite someone over at night for dinner, and then we'll see what we create. So Emma came over one night, and me and Emma were just sitting on the couch, and then we were just talking about, the dynamics and relationships, and I'm not really a fighter in a relationship. Like, I don't like controversy, and I don't, I'm just not a fighter. So if there is confrontation, I'm more likely to just kind of back down, and like, I don't want to fight. So anyway, we were just having conversations like that. And then we just started writing a song on guitar, which was kind of like an indie folk song. It definitely wasn't like this big 80s, hair metal ballad that me and Aiden ended up turning it into. But we just wrote this like little indie kind of folk song, Baby, I'm a Winner. I was sitting on the couch and for a couple of hours, me and Emma. And it was always kind of just this really cute little acoustic song. But we really liked the melodies and songwriting of it. And I loved just the title, Baby, I'm a Winner. That was also nearly the album was potentially going to be called Baby, I'm a Winner. But yeah, baby, I'm a winner, but I'll lose to you, and it's that classic, I'm a winner, but I'll lose to you. You can win this one. You can win every fight, whatever. And then later in the process, when me and Aiden are re-listening to all the songs that we've written over the last 2-3 months, we listen to Baby, I'm a Winner. And throughout the whole process, we were trying to nail like an 80s hair metal ballad, because it's such a big part of the 80s. These, tough rock star men with tight leather pants on and tattoos and big hair sitting at a piano just pouring their feelings out with big drawn out drum fills. Blah, boom, 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 with big drum tones and, harmonized guitar solos. And we were trying to get that for another song just during our journey of the 100 songs. We were like, and we tried it multiple times and it never worked. And then one night I came into the studio, and I was on the way to the studio. I was singing Baby, I'm a Winner, and I was trying to think like, what this song, it's like an indie acoustic song. How would it fit in an 80s lens? Like, what could we do to this song? Like, if we changed the tempo, changed the key, what kind of production 80s world? Would it be 80s hair ballad, or should we double the tempo and make it like a Devo song? Or should we like make it like The Cure and have some really high chorusy guitar tones and like put some shakers and percussion in it? And then I think I came into the studio one day and I was like, Aiden, we need to try Baby, I'm a Winner as like just the biggest like ballad, like over the top, like flamboyant and, dramatic, like ballad. And then we just went for it, and straight away it fit like a glove making that song. And we dropped the key, and we had so much fun. And I remember I was catching a flight back to Australia, and we got like a really good rough demo of it in a couple of hours, and knew instantly like, oh, like that is so fun. And so it was really great.
I absolutely love that. Thank you very much for sharing, I guess, that whole process and the journey that the song took to get where it kind of ended up. Is there a moment across Dream Ride that, I know it's always such an unfair kind of thing to ask an artist, what's your favorite song? Something like that. So I'm not going to ask that directly, but as someone who sings across it, writes the songs, multi-instrumentalist across the record and also produces, do you have a moment that you're most proud of across Stream Ride? Maybe it is a production thing, maybe it's a songwriting thing, but is there something that stands out to you that even when you hear it, might even be the smallest little drum fill that just gives you that little heart pang of, that's mine.
Yeah, there's a few things. I think the first one is I've been trying to get a key change in a song for 6 years. And I've tried it on so many songs and it never worked. And then Disco Cowgirl, it just worked so perfectly. And then going to a key change to like an a cappella Queen singing harmonies moment felt just so good to tick that off the list because I've been trying to put a key change in a song for so fucking long. So that's one of them. I don't want to regret like having heavy sax in a song. I always wanted to do, and I've learnt all the sax parts to play live now. And just the euphoric feeling that song has always given me, like as soon as that song plays, like sonically, it just uplifts me, and I really wanted that to come across in the lyrics. So that was really another really important one for me. And then I think Let's Take This Show on the Road, which is the closer. For me, that song just feels really classic to me, and it doesn't feel too time-stamped. If I think about, say, my first record, I can really hear it was made in 2018. I was using, production synth patches on Logic Pro back in, I didn't have any plugins. But Let's Take This Show on the Road, I feel like I'll still really love that song when I'm 80 years old and really be like, that's classic and timeless. Other than that, what else? I had a lot of fun on the record. I really enjoyed, listening to a lot of 80s records. I realized it's been a modern technique in production to layer your own vocal. So, my last few records, all my backing vocals and harmonies, it's me doing them, which is now, it's just the modern technique. It's what you do. But back in the 80s, you'd hire gun backing singers in to do your backing vocals. So, I wanted to do that. So, on multiple songs on the record, I got my two friends, Erica and Liza, to do backing vocals on Disco Cowgirl, Baby I'm a Winner. I got Charlie to do backing vocals on Cut His Dick Off because I wanted a male vocal on that song about cutting his dick off because, there's protective men in the world who also have a little sister dating a dickhead and, he wants to cut that boy's dick off too. So I really wanted to do the 80s thing of using other voices as backing singers because that's what they did in the 80s. It was guns for hire. You have synth players and saxophone players. Like, it was so musical. The musicality of it was so present. And then, I feel like then what became popular in the 90s was grunge, where it was, like guitar tones were, that grungy sound, and the chords might have been a little bit more simple. And I feel like the flamboyantness of the 80s kind of left a little bit in the 90s. I'm sure it was still in there somewhere, but maybe not as much in the top most popular songs at the time. But I just had a lot of fun playing with the musicality, and always the drums are going to be such a big part to me. And, recording every single snare tone, every single tom tone was very curated, and we spent a lot of time on that, which, that's just me being a drum nerd and loving doing that, even though most people listening to the record would have no idea how long it took for us to get that snare sound,
I imagine, though, that there is a lot of self-satisfaction. Like you and maybe one or two other people, maybe Aiden, have the knowledge and satisfaction that you got that tone exactly how you wanted it to be.
Yeah, I got my my drummer, Benji, who tours with me, and we switched drums throughout my live show. But he's been my idol drummer. I used to go to shows in Australia just to watch him play drums. and he was always been my favourite drummer in Australia. So, I wanted to get him involved on the record because no one can tune drums better than Benji Ellingworth. So I really wanted to get him involved on the process and get his ears around what the drum sounds like, because I really trust his drum knowledge, and he's been in the music industry for so long now and played for so many people, and he's the best drum tech ever. So, me, Benji and Aiden recording all the drums, we had the best week ever, to be honest.
I absolutely love that. Well, shout outs to Benji. Great work on this record, as well as you, G, and to Aiden. Speaking of touring, I know that, as mentioned at the top of our chat, you're currently in the US, going across the US for a number of dates there. And then I know that there are dates across the UK and Europe, and then some here at home in February and March. Curious, we still are only early days, so this answer might change. For now, is there a certain track off Dream Ride that that you are finding resonates with crowds, or at least that you're looking forward to playing the most off this new record?
I think, to be honest, as soon as I bring out my saxophone, everyone goes wild. It's only been one show, but I think from my socials, people know that I've only started teaching myself 3 months ago. Could be 4 months now. So as soon as I bring that sax out for this song, I Don't Want to Regret, track 2 on Dream Ride, the crowd lights up and they want to hear me rip. So I'm giving it my best.
That's very, very exciting. As mentioned, there are Australian dates in Feb and March, which we'll put details to in today's podcast show notes. Can we maybe expect, with all the talk of the 80s, in terms of pageantry, in terms of the stage show itself, can we expect some 80s style, I want to say, what's the word? Like accoutrements, production in terms of the stage show? Is that the right word?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially, in Australia, my shows are a lot bigger, so the stages are a lot bigger. So we're gonna get fun with it.
Very excited to see that. As mentioned, there's a few. I think there's 2 at Margaret Court Arena. So very, very excited to kind of see how that tour goes. We usually finish up our chats with our guests talking about what they're currently listening to. For yourself, is there anything at the moment that is on high rotation?
Yeah, I've been listening to quite a lot of stuff. There's been so many good releases recently. The Beaches' No Hard Feelings album, Dominic Fike, Rocket, I believe it's called, Dijon Baby, that record, Justin Bieber's Swag and Swag 2, which has a lot of influence from Dijon and McGee, who I'm a big fan of McGee, Sabrina Carpenter's new record. What else? They're the ones on heavy rotation this week, but every week it changes.
A pretty eclectic mix, I think, but a very very good mix. Very almost, I feel like Dijon, McGee and Swag to an extent as well, as you said, because influenced by them, has like a bit of a producers seem to like those records because there's a bit of textural grit to them almost.
Yeah, and it's like the imperfections, it sounds in moments very live and like kind of rough, and you don't know if it's because, it was the demo take and they just stayed with it, or aesthetically that's what they went for. And, I just really love, especially like McGee, his guitar tones in the way, like even on McGee's record, he sings melody lines while playing like a lead guitar part that kind of weaves and is like a counter melody with his vocal, which I find just so interesting. And I went and saw him live and it blew my mind. So I'm a big fan. So yeah.
Absolutely love that. Well, I want to say thank you very much, G Flip, for coming onto the podcast today, and congratulations on Dream Ride. It is the brand new record from yourself. It is out now, and we'll make sure there are links in the podcast show notes for people to purchase it and buy tickets to your tour, both across the US and in Australia. But G Flip, thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, mate. Pleasure.